Best Books of the Year and state award lists. He's the author of the critically acclaimed middle grade novels, The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora, a 2018 Pura Belcree Honor Book, and Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish, which is currently in development as a feature film adaptation. His most recent novel, Each Tiny Spark, was honored with the 2020 Schneider Family Book Award for its portrayal of the disability experience, and published by the Coquilla Penguin Random House imprint, which focuses on publishing diverse books for children and young adults. Pablo is proudly bilingual in Espanol y Inglés, and while he's currently available for virtual visits only, he does look forward to once again visiting readers around the country soon. You can follow him on Instagram and Twitter at PH Cartaya. And Pablo, I believe you're up.
I'm up. All right. Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. How are you all? I'm looking here. I'm seeing Catherine. I see Catherine and Kathy and Jen. Hey, Jen, chilling there on the sun. Feels good. Clarissa, everybody. Well, happy Friday, or as we say in my house, day. This has been a very interesting experience, I'm sure, for all of us. You know, writing is a solitary act, and one would think that being a writer, you, with all this time that you have now that you cannot go out, you would think, great, let's create, right? But that has not been the case. You know, it's interesting because you see like a lot of videos on Instagram, you see like workouts happening, and you see like, you know, live readings going on, and you see that people are like finding ways to work, you know, and there's people watching lots of movies, and there's people drinking. And I have done 2 of those 5 things for the last month with certain consistency. I'm not going to tell you which 2 because there's children present. But let's just say I got a subscription and it comes delivered every month. You know, one of the movies that I saw recently, and I don't know if you all remember this, you remember the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the movies, those big epic movies? You know, they came out with an extended version. And I think that Peter Jackson probably did this on purpose for quarantine because the movies now are 4 hours long. So it's basically equivalent to 1 week of quarantine. So if you're interested in that, I recommend it. It's a good way to pass the time. But, you know, I was kind of looking through, and I wanted to show my son this movie for the first time. So we sat and we watched it. And as I was watching, I was kind of going through these emotions of like, I started kind of thinking that I was some of the characters, like, because of what I was experiencing. Like, you know, like Gimli, the dwarf, like he's always angry and he's always drinking and he's always like cursing at everyone. And I'm like, yeah, that's me, like every day, like at 5 p.m., you know, or Aragorn, who's, you know, he's coming in, he's brave, he's got to, you know, take the charge, right? And then there's always like Kate Blanchett, who's like just kind of hovering over my head at all times. Don't worry, everything will be fine. And that's kind of been my experience in this unprecedented time. You know, it's really interesting to see the inspiring stories that are going out there. You know, John Krasinski's got this wonderful new thing that he's got going on. And there's so many people doing incredible things. And I encourage you all, if you're kind of feeling, you know, down or whatever, kind of look them out and seek them out. It's, you know, there's a lot of bad right now in the world, but there's a lot of good too. And it helps, you know. But I also want to kind of step back for a minute and see like all these inspiring stories and all these things happening. And I'm like, I'm just trying to teach my kids 7th grade math. Like that's my thing, right? And we're talking about like purpose, you know, in our creative mornings. And I'm thinking, well, what's my purpose? I've become a 7th grade math teacher, but I'm not very good at it. You know, I suck at it. And my daughter, she started off, she goes, Bobby, can you help me with math? And I started helping her, and she's looking at me like, I'll do it. I'll do it. And she kind of just shoved me away, right? And I kind of look at kids, right? You know, because I primarily write for young people. And I look at kids, and I've spent a lot of time with my children, obviously, because we're here in the house. And I see my daughter Penelope, my 7th grader, and who's basically fired me as her math teacher. This kid wrote in quarantine a 90-page screenplay. She went by herself and got on my computer, by the way, and just started, because I have this format that's called Final Draft, and she started writing. She wrote a 90-page screenplay. My son, my 9-year-old, all right, wakes up every morning and goes to work out. And he comes to me and goes, "Papi, come on, let's go do some crunches." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, get out of your pajamas." I'm like, "I'm not in my pajamas." It's like, "You're wearing your Christmas pajamas, Pops. Get out of your pajamas. Let's go work out," right? My 1-year-old, she took her first steps in quarantine. She took her first steps and she's running around, and now she is essentially taken over the entire household. She owns everything in the house. And I'm looking at this and I think, man, this is amazing. This is an incredible thing that I'm witnessing. And I really kind of go back to why am I doing the things that I do? And my kids are basically my target audience, right? That's primarily where I write to, right? I write to middle schoolers. And I was just thinking about what I was watching them and seeing how incredibly resilient and how proactive they are about everything. And it really got me thinking a lot about this idea of purpose. You know, I spent a great deal of time building up to where I am right now. And I'm sure that all of you and your jobs and your professions and the things that you do, like, you know, we go through the grind for so long, right? We push and we sacrifice and we go to school and we get into debt and we do all these things and we push and we push and we push. And we get to the point where we're like, you look at your bank account and you're kind of like, all right, I'm doing all right. You know, you look at your things, you know, you look at the things that you can go to, the things that you can say, and then all of a sudden it just stops, right? And I reflected on this a lot. You know, I reflected on this meaning of purpose. And for a while and for a long time, and probably up to the point of, I would say a month ago, I thought my purpose meant something else. I thought my purpose was to succeed, was to get to the point where I can afford the lifestyle for my children and for myself and for my family. I thought that that was the purpose. I write books, right, with an eye towards the Latinx experience in the United States. And I've sold books and I go around the country. I've gone around the country and I've spoken to kids and I've spoken to educators. And I think, yeah, that was my purpose. I've made it. I can't tell you how many times I've told my mom, I go, "Mom, look, I did it." But this unprecedented time really got me thinking, what does it mean? What was my purpose truly? Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. The purpose that I approached my career up to this point was this. I get invited to a place, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I get invited to Boise, Idaho. I get invited to a small town in South Carolina. I go to these places. I'm like, cool, I'm getting invited. I've been on 25 different state award lists. That's my daughter in the background, if you can hear her. I've been on 25 state award lists. I've won several national awards. And every time I go to speak, I thought, well, these are the 3 things that I talk about: family, community, and culture. And what does that mean? And I get really fun and I do all this stuff. And then I've since realized something. And I realized it when it was taken away, when I could no longer travel, when all of my visits in April and in May were canceled because I couldn't fly. There was schools then were canceled. And I thought about something. I thought, yeah, there was some income lost. But you know what I lost more than anything? I lost the connection to those kids, to those people that can see themselves in a story, right? I realized that when I work, I work in 2 languages. Yo hablo español, hablo inglés, and I write with a combination of both. These books here, The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora, Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish, Each Tiny Spark, these books represent the Latinx experience in this country. And when I go and I speak about these books, I have gone and seen kids who are hearing their language, their native language, for the first time in a book. They're hearing it for the first time in a book. And they're going and they're raising their hands. When I said, ¿Quién aquí habla español? And they're raising their hands. And I have kids coming up to me and they're hugging me and they're saying, gracias. And I realized as I was examining what the purpose of my career is, it was never about reaching success, monetary or otherwise. It was about what I was doing with the opportunities that were given to me, how I was impacting my communities for the better, how I was representing my family for the better, how I was making the most, right, out of my culture in a way that can connect people, right, in a way that I can feel proud and I can share that pride with other kids who are like me. That is where I refocused my thinking. It's not what we want. Purpose is not about what we want. It's about what we do with that purpose. And I want to go back to Lord of the Rings just for a second. I don't know if you all remember in the first one, you know, little Frodo is there in the mines of Tirith, right? And they're sitting there, and he's there, and he's all like, oh, Gandalf, I don't know what to do. This is my best Frodo voice, okay? Forgive me, Elijah Wood. Sorry. He says, you know, Frodo, not Frodo. Oh, see, I would have been fired as an actor too. Jesus. Okay. He talks to Gandalf and he says, I wish none of this would have ever happened. And Gandalf looks at him and he says, that is not for us to decide. What we decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. I don't know if you remember that scene, right? Now, I want you all to think about that as I wrap it up and open up for a few questions. I want us to think about what we do with the time that is given to us, not just now in quarantine and as things begin to, you know, find a new normal. I want us to think about what it means beyond the current situation. What does our purpose mean for us? What are we going to do with the things that we feel are connected to our purpose? And again, for me, on a personal note, like, it's going to be to continue writing stories. I've got to turn in my newest book to my editor on Monday. I've been working nights, late at night, and waking up in the mornings and just doing what I can do. And I've got another book due in August. But it's going to be beyond that. I'm going to go and think about the things that I'm doing and creating and how I can think about my family, my community, and my culture in a deeper way to create a deeper sense of purpose for what I'm trying to do in this world. So thank you all so much. I'm going to take some questions now. So thank you. And so just, you know, and also if you have any questions that go beyond the time that we have, just hit me up. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and I'll respond, you know. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Pablo. Wow, thank you so much for being here with us this morning and really sharing your gift. There was a point where I looked up while you were talking at the gallery, and you literally had every single person on screen hooked, like literally on every word you said, and I think that's so special. So thank you so much for doing the important work that you have been. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can message me directly. I caught a couple early on. So are you able to tell us the name of your film?
Of my film?
Yes.
So this book, Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish, is currently being adapted into a feature film. I don't know, does anybody follow reggaeton? Anybody like reggaeton? You know, all right, I see Laura there saying, yeah, okay. Laura, yeah, it's, yeah, y'all know Nicky Jam? So Nicky Jam is gonna be in the movie. Now check this out. This is crazy, right? Nicky Jam, this amazing reggaeton superstar, right? This book This book is about a kid, a teenager, who lives in a small town in Pennsylvania, and he goes to Puerto Rico to find his dad, who he hasn't seen in 10 years, right? And he connects with family who he has never met, right? And I'm sure a lot of you, if you're Latino or whatever, I'm sure that some of you have that experience where you're growing up in the States, and then you go to the origin of your culture, and then you meet with family, and they're kind of like looking at you like you're almost like a stranger sometimes, or sometimes they're embracing you completely and fully. And I wanted to write to that. So interestingly, back to Nikki. So Nikki grew up in a small town in the Northeast, and he did not. His mother was Anglo, and his dad lived in Puerto Rico. And the first time he saw them was at the age that Marcus Vega in my book is, when he went to Puerto Rico and he learned how to speak Spanish there when he met up with him. And out of all the crazy things, Nikki's producer read the book, showed it to Nikki, and Nikki's like, "This is my life. This is my story." So it was a really cool thing. So it's been in development. It has been halted for now because all production is grounded. So unfortunately, that's the way it is right now. But there's lots of lots of things to look forward to, though.
The next question is, do you have any movie recommendations?
Well, it depends. Okay, so like the other day, I was so stressed. I was like, yo, I cannot work anymore. I need a minute. I just need. So I opened a really good bottle of tequila, and I watched Old School. You remember the Old School? It's completely ridiculous. And I watched it. Yo, check it. Oh, so like, and then we're like, with my daughter, we're like, my wife is trying to like get her to like watch some old movies that we liked. So last night she put on The Devil Wears Prada. You guys remember that one?
Of course.
Okay, so we saw it again yesterday. Super problematic. Like super problematic. Like there's a scene where Anne Hathaway's in Paris with that like skeezy writer guy. And she's like, no. He's like, yeah, come on, just a little bit. She's like, no, I'd rather not. And then she kisses him and she goes, okay, fine. I guess I'll just give up. I'm like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? My daughter looks at it. She's like, what's wrong with her? Just hit him in the face. He said no. And she gets up and she starts yelling at this TV. She said no.
Yes. Not yes, but I'm saying like yes to what you're saying. Your daughter is woke. Yes.
So some movies hold up, some movies don't. So it's kind of interesting, like there's some, and then there's that like thing where you like a movie like The Devil Wears Prada, where you kind of put it on and then you're like this because you want to show it to your kid, and then all of a sudden you see all the problematic things kind of emerging in the story. You're like,
It should make you proud though that she's like, well, this is problematic and this is problematic and this, like, that's awesome.
She was like, I can't with this. And she was like, excuse me. So her boyfriend sucks because she's not supporting her decision to want to be successful. And she's going off like this. She's doing this. She's like standing up and doing this thing in front of the TV. She's like, and her friend is an artist. Like, she should just understand, it's like, oh my God. I was like, all right, well, we're doing something right, I guess.
In reference to your daughter, we have a question here. What was the screenplay software that you said that she used?
Oh, it's called Final Draft. It's super intuitive. It does cost, I think, like $135 or something like that to download, but it's for life. And they give you the free updates on it. Again, it's very intuitive. It's very easy to work on. If you or a kid or anybody is interested in that, it's definitely worth it to play around with, but just know that it's an investment. Like it's going to cost, I want to say, I think when I bought it, it was $135, but they've given me updates, every time. So I think they're at version 11 or something now. But definitely very cool, super easy. Like you just basically tab and it goes right to character, it goes right to dialogue, goes right to action just by tabbing. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, and in reference to your books, what is the target age?
I always say that the target age is 10 to 100.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because yes, it is marketed for middle schoolers primarily. Like that's the sweet spot that it's marketed for. But really, there are so many adult characters in the books, and they're really themes about life, and being a Latinx person in this country, and the experiences that we have with our abuelas and our moms and our overbearing, mothers or abuelas who are like constantly trying to like comb our hairs and stuff like, like things like that. I have had a lot of adults come up to me and thank me for like writing a book about basically their life. So it's like, yes, it is targeted for middle schoolers. But I definitely think that anybody can just pick it up and really kind of like, and especially if you're kind of trying to find a link to like your cultural connection, and you don't have to be Cuban American, you can be anything. And it's really just kind of like, oh my God, that's totally my family. And also just so like, if you guys are not tired of hearing my voice, all the audiobooks are available.
Oh, nice.
All the audiobooks are available, and I recorded all of them. I was hired to
Did you use your
record all of
Gandalf
them. So
voice? Did you
I
use your
did. I
Gandalf
used my
voice?
no. My favorite one was my abuela voice, because when you're recording an audiobook, I recorded it for a Random House listening library, and when you're recording, you can't really like change voices too extensively because it kind of throws it off. But abuela's voice, I was always very much like, very like, pero why are you wearing that? So it was fun. I mean, it's so if you want like 15 to 20 hours of just listening to me read my books, I mean, I encourage you, check it out. Go to go to listening library, and we can spend 20 hours together if you want.
Excellent. Well, we have one more question, but I know that we're rounding up the hour, and everyone, I know that we're working from home now, or we have a lot of things happening. So if you need to drop off, thank you so much for joining us. We will get to that last question. Thank you so much for Chef Julie with Delables. Thank you so much for Simon and Sam with Poetry and Pajamas. That was so cute. Thank you so much to you, Pablo. Thank you so much to our official global partner of marketing, MailChimp. Thank you so much to Basecamp. We'll circle back to these because I have some really cool discounts for you all. But again, thank you all for joining us. If you can stick around, we'll get to this last question. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. So for those of you who can stick around, I think the last question for you, Pablo, was, do you have any book recommendations or anything that you've read lately that you've really enjoyed?
Yes, there are some. I mean, I'm looking here at my, so there's a couple of them. Like I didn't read it recently, but I definitely recommend it. It's a young adult book, but it's amazing. It's called The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. She's Afro-Dominican, and it's a book in verse. Since we're talking about Miami and stuff like that, like it is legit amazing. I truly love it. There's an incredible book called On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous that came out early last fall, which is incredible. It's about it's like kind of like a novel sort of slash memoir about this guy who's a Vietnamese expat, and he kind of learning to live a life of being a queer young man. He's not a young adult book, but but like, and like how his overbearing mother is also like, it's basically like a letter that he's writing to his mother. It's really profound and really really great. I've kind of started looking through some older books. I went back to Isabel Allende's first book, The House of Spirits, and it's incredible the second time around, and I'm really glad that I'm looking at it and reading it. So I mean, I just really just kind of like, I think that if you have the time to read, just kind of, I'm not one of those people that says like you should only read high literature or you're not worthy of reading. You know, like read whatever the hell you want. You know, if Twilight is your bag, go for it. You know, like, no, I'm serious. Like, or if Flaubert is your jazz, go for it. You know, it's like, read what feels good to you. Like, if you want to read a middle grade book, if you want to read my books, read them. You know what I mean? Or like we need to break down these sort of ideas that literature is pigeonholed into one specific thing. Look, if you want to read Shel Silverstein, read Shel Silverstein. If you want to go and spend an entire evening with Maya Angelou poetry, I definitely recommend it. It's amazing. But or you just might want to look at, you know, the Hunger Games. You might want to read the Hunger Games. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't need to control the kind of stuff that we get to enjoy or that we get to read. You know what I mean? Reading is reading. It's reading. That's what we need to encourage. We need to encourage reading in whatever capacity that means to you. Go for it. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to just finish, if I could, just to read a little passage from this book, Each Tiny Spark. Is a book that it's loosely based on my daughter, and it's about community, and about school redistricting, and, you know, and moving Black and brown bodies into different schools, and then white flight and all that stuff. But it's really like a book about how this girl comes into her own about how she views her community. And I think that, as you know, as we consider purpose, and we consider what we're going to do with our purpose beyond this quarantine, beyond this time, I want to just share this little piece with you. It's very short, about what we do after, right? And so Emilia, her name is Emilia Rosa, and she's talking about her town. It's called Maryville, and Maryville is split into Maryville proper. It's a town in northern Georgia. It's made up, a fictional town. It's split between Maryville and Parkview, and Parkview has most residents of color, people of color, and then Maryville is kind of like the all white. And then there's an encroachment happening, and people are, you know, but she's kind of now contending with this. She is Cuban American. I love Maryville and Parkview. I love the way the trees surround us on all sides, the way the train tracks cut through town, the way people get too excited about fireworks or a school football game or a random festival. There is good in this town, but you can't put together a vehicle with a messed up bead line. You can't expect your car to drive normally with a damaged axle. You have to take it apart. You have to examine the pieces that are warped or corroded or missing. You have to grind out the corrosion. You must take a dead blow hammer and smash the warped pieces back into place. We got a lot to fix once we get out. And I hope that all of you join me on that journey, and share your own purposes, and really kind of connect in a way that goes deeper with how you view your own purpose. I want to wish you all I'm wishing you all good health, and stay safe, and I look forward to see you all at some pachanga somewhere and live soon. All right.
Thanks, Pablo. Again, so I'm just going to get into the portion